Alright, we're back for part 2 here. The SL-5800. We already replaced the timer battery, and now we're going to tackle the threading and unthreading drive belts, which can slip and cause issues such as the typical issue I've seen with it is the tape threads okay, or maybe it doesn't thread at all. Tape goes down but nothing happens. It just kind of sits there and you hear a whirring sound because it can't actually thread the tape around the drum. The other issue I've seen is it does thread up okay, but then when you go to eject the tape, the belt that actually drives the take-up spindle to kind of reel the tape back into the cartridge or the cassette doesn't turn, and then you have a bunch of tape spilling out as the deck unthreads, and it ejects a ribbon of tape and ruins your day. So anyway, we're going to tackle that. It's not that easy on these decks. It's kind of a pain. It's a very tight area to work in, but I'll try and do the best I can to explain it. Quickly though, to touch on part 1 again with the board, the little battery board, just to take this apart. Let me see if this is focused. Shame using a cell phone to do this. Not used to cell phone cameras. I like manual cameras. Anyway, so your shield pops off the one side. Gosh, when it's cooperating, it does. Wow. Okay, so that part comes off, but the other side you actually have to desolder. So there's 2 solder points here, and there's another solder point right in there. So you have to desolder that and take that out, and then of course you just follow typical, you cut the battery out, whatever you want to do, or take it out, clean. You have to clean up all this corrosion, get rid of it, neutralize it, make sure it doesn't come back. On the one that I did here, it had just a little bit. Luckily, I scraped that all off, used a little fiberglass, it's actually for automotive body work, but I kind of got rid of all the corrosion mechanically, I guess you'd say, and then cleaned it good with alcohol and a little bit of white vinegar just to clean it all up, and then a nice like a trace paint. I forget the name of it now. I don't remember what the heck I used, but just to cover the copper. I don't even think it's really necessary if it's gonna be stored indoors. I don't think it's gonna corrode again, but who knows? Can't hurt. So that's how you get that thing apart, and then solder all back together. There's the zip tie that I didn't put back in. Best way to do that, of course, zip tie the battery in, then make your solder connections. That way you don't stress out the connections putting the zip tie on second. Just a pro tip, I guess. Anyway, put that aside. So I'm going to try and get the camera situated in such a way that this makes sense. But anyway, the first thing I'm going to do is remove this rear shield first, and then this cover over the drum and threading ring. Probably easiest at this point to eject the cassette holder and make sure we're focused again. Okay, and I'll take these off. Anyway, there's 6 screws that hold on these covers. Of course, the rear shield has to come off first, so let's look at that. Had a pretty large spider come down right here earlier, waiting for a second. There's 1 screw in the back here. This back here actually is where you'd connect your scope to monitor the RF waveform if you need to. Okay, so carefully take this guy off. Alright, so now what we have to do here is this board needs to go. That's going to be completely in the way. So there's a little clear plastic kind of insulator here that just lifts off. So put that off to the side. And then there's 1 screw here that will allow this board to hinge upward. That'll hinge up. And then you want to remove these 3 connectors here. Probably not doing these right. I've never been too confident in my connector removal. Man, these long ones stink. Careful not to bend the pins here. Man, these things are on there. There we go. All right. Now just be very careful around this drum. You don't want to break a head or scratch the surface in any way, or you're basically stuck. Alright, so to get rid of this board, there's a little, it kind of goes through this little hole here. If you push this little bracket towards you just a little bit, you can sneak the hinge out. There we go. Pull it out of the other side, that'll free up the board. Alright. Might have to resituate the camera here, so let me see what the best way to do this is, and we'll go from there. Okay, a little closer there. So our threading assembly is down over here, but the first thing we really need to do here is, looks like somebody might have had this out already because its wiring's not exactly perfect anymore. But there are 2 clips here. Kind of pull these out, that'll let this board move this way. So pop this one out, pop that one out, just a little bit, and you'll see what I mean. I'm going to move the camera again. You'll see that that actually gives us enough space to work with. Alright, hopefully we can see that. So here's the threading assembly down here. First thing we have to do, now there are specs in the service manual that describe the distance. I believe it's this model. I'd have to check. I don't have my manuals here, of course, so I'm going to have to comment or update the description with these specs, but this little guide plate here has to be a certain distance from this threading ring. I don't exactly see the point, as long as it's not rubbing on it. It seems to be fine. I don't know if it has some kind of special purpose that I don't understand, but I'm no trained expert in this. So anyway, and also there's a spec to set this gear here, which I'm not sure if you can see. You can just see it. There's a gear here that meshes with the teeth underneath the threading ring, and there's a certain spec for the distance between this gear and the threading ring. And the entire threading assembly pivots like this to adjust that. So it's going to be kind of hard to see, but basically what interferes with getting this assembly out is this darn resistor here. So this one's already been bent out of the way. I don't know if somebody did this at one time or not, but anyway. So the other thing you want to do is this connector on the end. It's a 2-conductor, 3-position, 2-conductor connector. Go ahead and pull that out. That feeds the threading board back here, a little motor driver board. Alright, hopefully my monotonous tone isn't boring everyone to death here. But anyway, so there are 2 screws, 2 Phillips screws down here. You'll see them. One's right where the belt rides, and another one is down inside between the board and the bracket, way down in there. I'd recommend a magnetic screwdriver because you're going to drop that darn screw, and then you'll have to take the bottom panel off, and I don't have time to get into that. But that's a world of hurt. Anyway, so take this top screw out. Okay, the top one, and the one in the back. It's here. See that whole assembly? Pivots on that screw. I forgot something. I guess we don't have to do that yet. See, there's a belt. There's 2 belts, 2 small 3.2 belts here, and there's another longer belt which connects the front pulley and clutch assembly here to the actual take-up. Well, not the take-up. It actually drives a another idler back here that has its own little positioning scenario. But anyway, we can just slip that belt over the front. How many times I've done this and I've never found a concrete way to do it in a great order. I'm not the best teacher, but alright, so we'll remove the screw in the back. Alright, didn't drop it this time. Alright. And then I'm going to be able to move the rest of it. I want to see if there's a better way to position this camera, because I don't think I'm giving you the best view. So, stand by. Well, I don't think there's any way around it. We're going to have to remove the carriage assembly. So, we do to do that is eject it, remove this little spring-loaded skirt in the front. There's 2 screws here. I'll lose track of all these screws quickly. That's what I mean. The front-loading 5000 series is a lot easier to work on than this unit. I'm not sure about the 5600 and 5400. I think they have the timer batteries. I've never owned any of those, so I'm really not sure. But I would imagine it would be very similar in design to this unit. So anyway, there are 4 screws here. One we already loosened for the ground. 2 here, 2 here. That'll allow us to remove the entire elevator assembly. Try and keep track of these screws. I've done this so many times I feel like I should know where they go. This will at least allow you to see how the mechanism functions a little better. It'll make more sense, and it won't block the view to the threading motor. So very carefully lift the right side out first, kind of sneak the left side out. Never force anything. Okay, that should help. So you can see we have a belt here. This is the longer belt I'm talking about that runs from the threading assembly to this little idler tire or idler drive here, which when the unit goes into eject mode, you can see it moves and drives the take-up reel to pull the tape back into the cassette. So that sometimes slips. That tire can go bad. This tire can go bad. You know, all kinds of possible scenarios in which it'll eat a tape. But anyway, let's get this threading mechanism out of here. Another easy way to do this is to actually remove, this is the end sensor. When it's rewinding, this is the tape end sensor here. There's one Phillips screw which holds that in, so you can very carefully remove that. And that will allow this whole assembly to kind of flip out of the way. You can even unplug it if you want, but I never do that. I just kind of carefully fold it over there, and there's a lovely view of all the belts. So this belt I already replaced. Don't know why I did this out of order. Just too much time on my hands. But anyway, so now that we've taken out these 2 screws, the threading assembly will come out completely. So kind of pull this board carefully back as far as we can get it. And then we have to work this assembly out. And there's a wire clamp at the bottom that always gets stuck. You kind of have to get some kind of tool down in there to bend the clamp out of the way, because it hugs the wiring harness and kind of keeps it from coming out. And then we very carefully struggle to get this assembly out of here. It's probably a certified technician's trick to get this thing out in 3 minutes, but until somebody tells me what that is, I'm gonna struggle. Come on. Ugh. Once again, be very careful of the drum. So there we have it. There's one belt, and there's the second belt. So anyway, so we have to just do some minor disassembly here. I guess we'll start another video for that. So stay tuned.